My guest this week on the Bruce Lee podcast is longtime friend, movement artist, and director, Jon Boogz. Jon and I met more than a decade ago at a taping of So You Think You Can Dance, and we have been friends ever since. I have watched Jon's star rise over the last decade, and it is rising still. I've witnessed him go from living in a tiny apartment with three other dancers to working with such greats as Mikhail Baryshnikov, Gloria Estefan, and Naomi Campbell. Jon's performances and choreography have been featured in Pharrell's Adidas Originals campaign and the Adidas tribute to Standing Rock at ComplexCon, as well as on the new series on Starz, Blindpsotting. Boogz also co-founded Movement Art Is with fellow dancer, collaborator, and friend Lil Buck in 2016, and together they have created projects that merge movement with social issues. Jon is passionate about dance and movement as a medium for self-expression and higher awareness. I loved our conversation, and I feel like Jon really embodies the soul of an artist and expresses himself beautifully. I think for some, this conversation can also help offer a window into parts of my father's soul as a movement artist as well. Check out the show notes for more about Jon and where you can connect with him. But for now, please listen to me and Boogz get real on the Bruce Lee podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to the Bruce Lee podcast. I'm so excited for our new season, and I want to introduce to you today my first guest, movement artist Jon Boogz. Hey Jon.
What's up?
Boogz.
How you doing? How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I can't complain. Things are good. Working, creating art, healthy, which is the most important thing nowadays, right? So I'm just happy to be healthy and happy to be creating art in this really pivotal time in our society. So it's just nice.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. You know, the theme this season is family. And so when I was thinking about my guests and who could sort of fit into the theme of family, I thought about you because we have known each other for quite some time, right?
We've known each other for a while now.
Yeah. When did we meet? That was like, well, I can tell you it was like 6 years ago, something like that.
Oh, Shannon, your timing is horrible. It's not 6 years ago. We met in 2010 or 11, which would have been
11 years.
about 11 years ago. Yeah, I met you on the set of So You Think You Can Dance because they were licensing your father's image for a person who was using it in the show, and we happened to sit next to each other. I had no idea who you were. And then I said, yeah, I'm here to support my friend because my friend was on the show at the time. And I'm like, what are you doing here? And you're like, yeah, they're using my dad's for the show. And it didn't click at first. I'm like, who's her dad? You know what I mean? And then boom. And then, but it was nice though. We hit it off organically, which was really cool. And we've been close ever since. So yeah, I think we're about 10, 11 years in on a friendship, which is awesome.
That is right. And I was just doing the math wrong because I remember we met right before my dad's 70th birthday. But in my mind, I was thinking 75. So that's why I was like, well, 75, that was 6 years ago. But no, you're right. It was 70th birthday.
Yeah.
And that was 11 years ago.
Yeah.
Roughly. Yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
That is.
I know. Well, life is interesting, and we have we have worked together technically. Like you've been a huge supporter, of Bruce Lee, which I have, and the Bruce Lee Foundation, which I have always really appreciated. You've taught classes, you've done performances, you've choreographed pieces, and we've even at times, and never know, may do again soon, worked on show ideas and all sorts of things, right?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah. So thank you for all these years of friendship. Who knew
Well,
that,
it's
who
an
knew
honor.
that we would become friends for all these years?
Yeah, it's true, it's true, it's true, yeah, everything happens for a reason, and
Yeah.
it's wild how things work, and I think, just been blessed to have you in my space and in my universe, it's definitely a blessing, and I don't take it for
Mm,
granted.
Thank you, thank you. Well, I don't take our relationship for granted either. Tell people, who you are and what you do. I called you a movement artist, so
Yeah.
what does
So
that mean?
I guess, yeah, nowadays I'm wearing many hats, but
Okay.
um, I call myself a movement artist because I started off as a dancer. I've been doing street dance for 22 years now. Um, and then I've always had a love for film. Growing up, my mother used to take me to we had this like $5 movie theater across the street from our house. So like, but my mom was like trippy. Like she used to take us to see some pretty deep narrative movies like Schindler's List and like Color Purple, and just like she was always into like trying to get us to really appreciate cinema and the deep narrative stories that cinema brings to the table.
Mm,
And so like, and why I bring this up is because like as my dance career started maturing, I said, well, how can I differentiate myself and really change people's perception of this art form that is dance? And I figured it was like the storytelling mechanism of it and how I can hopefully push those boundaries in the theater space and in the film space. And so like I'm a movement artist first because all my inspiration, even the way I like to direct, it's choreographed. It has a rhythm to it. You know what I mean? So I'm a movement artist first, but now I've been diving into producing and writing and directing. So I'm doing all kinds of things, but I'm always a dancer and a movement artist and a visionary first, if that makes sense.
yeah. Well, it makes sense to me because I know you and
Yeah.
I've seen how you've grown and just blossomed over these
Yeah.
many years that we've known each other, and it's really an honor to watch
For sure.
and really beautiful also, and to see you attempt to apply, social messaging to your art and all those different things.
Well, I mean, every artist I've ever looked up to did that. You know what I mean? Like Bob Marley did it, Michael did it, your father did it,
Mm,
uh, Nina Simone did it. Just so many people, you know what I mean? And even some of the directors who've, touched on it in film, even some recent people, Ava DuVernay, just so many people that I look up to in the space. I feel like to some degree they feel like it's their duty when they have a platform to kind of touch on the times. Nina Simone said it best: you can't be an artist and not reflect the times. So
mm,
for me, I've always felt it was important to do that. And I think particularly with dance now too, because so much of it is social media driven now. You see it everywhere on TikTok and Instagram. And I love the fact that people have platforms and they can just have fun with it. But I also, I love seeing people use that gift and try to push it a little bit further, uh, uh, as far as the storytelling goes, if that makes sense.
mhm, definitely. And when I met you, as you said, you had a friend on the show who wanted to utilize, my father on the show as an inspiration to him. Has my father been an inspiration to you as well?
Oh, 1,000%, 1,000%. I mean, just even growing up in Black and brown communities, I mean, Bruce Lee is like one of the iconic figures, and even in our space, you know what I mean? When my father was growing up, he used to go to the movies to see your father's films. You know what I mean? And just for me, I really, what I got from him is more the his philosophical approach to his art, and how
Mhm,
he through learning different foundational things, he started to realize like, oh, all these things are tools for you to ultimately express yourself how you want to do it. And
mhm,
it's the same with any dance style. I grew up popping and I wanted to be a popper and I wanted to learn all the foundations of that particular genre. And then as I started to blossom as a human being and as an artist, I'm like, well, I want to bend it. I want to shape it. I want to mold it in a different way. And,
mhm,
I loved his just approach on like he didn't believe in styles because styles do become a doctrine and they become a gospel truth in your mind, and it can limit the way you stretch it and the way you push it. So I think that's the biggest inspiration. And then also you're just a performer. I mean, look at the way he performed on camera. Look at his charisma on camera, his confidence on camera, and his swag. You know, he was fresh. He dressed clean. You know what I mean? Like he always presented himself a certain way. And when I step in place, I mean, right now I'm coming from rehearsal, but usually I'm wearing loud flower outfits or super colorful things because it's a part of who I am as an artist. And I think Bruce was that way as well. It's like anytime he stepped out, you know, and that's just, so it's so many things from philosophy to performance. Oh, and training, you know, like putting in the time. If you want to master something, you have to put in the time, you have to put in those hours. You can't skip those steps, you know what I mean? And so training, philosophy, style, charisma, performance. So he's definitely a top 4 influence in my life. I would have to say Michael Jackson, Bruce, Kobe Bryant. I'd have to think on the 4th, you know, I'd have to think, but those are like my 3, you know, those are like my 3. Michael got me dancing, Kobe made me an athlete, and Bruce was like the combination, you know, it's like a combination of both of what they bring to the table. So those are like my 3 biggest influences in my life, as far as artists go or athletes.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love hearing you talk about these different elements that you know, that you have gotten from my father and be so spot on with it, which I love too. And be really deep into it. Cause my experience with you, you know, as we have talked and created and done things together is that, you know, this idea of real personal expression and honest self-expression and learning, and as you said, putting in the time and really being yourself are very key to who you are as a human being.
100%, 100%. And it's just something you learn over time to try to get better at. Like your father said, it's truly hard to express oneself truthfully and honestly in that moment. People act like it's like when you say that, you're like, oh, I can express myself honestly. But like when you're actually there, you got cameras on you, you got people watching you, you got producers, you got this, you got that. You might be a producer or director on it and you're still involved in the project. So have you turned off your director brain to just turn into a performer? There's so many outside things that can stop you from expressing yourself honestly and truthfully in a moment. And like, I think that's something I'm still continuing to work on, like every day. That's a lifelong thing that's not something you can just wake up and get it, you know?
I think we're all working on that for the rest of our life.
But I'm noticing the closer I get to tapping into that, the better the art is, you know, and the better the creations are. And I think I had to like learn some things, because even growing up in the communities you grow up in, you subconsciously put up these defense mechanisms. And like sometimes it's easier to pull an emotion of anger more so than vulnerability, or you know what I mean, or joking or clowning more so than love, and you know, just different things that I was trying to, like when I'm on stage, like, oh, I'm not really good at expressing that particular emotion. I can't really click in like that, and I wonder why. And you start realizing like, oh, there's some blocks there, you know what I mean? And then once you start working on yourself a little bit more, you feel more comfortable revealing those sides of yourself. And then you realize like, oh, there's a whole nother spectrum of my artistry that I haven't even tapped into yet, you know?
Yeah. Well, and it's a limitless well, really. There's like so many layers, and that's what my father was always talking so much about, self-knowledge, and why self-knowledge is so important, because the more you know yourself, the more you have to bring to the table, right?
100%, 100%,
Yeah. Yeah,
100%.
yeah. And so you bring a lot, as we talked about already, a lot of social commentary to your work. I've seen a lot of the dance short videos that you've made, but you also have an amazing stage show that has a lot of social commentary in it as well. And I'm sure you have a number of other projects you can tell us about that you're working on soon. But like, what is so the theme is family. And one of the things, you know, I want to talk about, obviously my father had the quote, "Under the sky, under the heavens, we're all one family."
Mhm.
What is it that you're, you know, hoping to express from a one family perspective by creating content around these messages?
Mm, that's a good question. Uh I think it's ultimately right. You wanna raise awareness because you feel like the more people understand each other's differences, the more we can start to connect as human beings and realize that we are just one family. But I think what stops us from that one family concept is we already have these constructs and mental barriers that block us from fully trying to understand each other's differences. So I think if I can bring awareness to an experience of someone who's lived inside a body that looks like mine, maybe you'll have a better understanding of people like me as a whole, right? You know,
Mhm.
maybe, right? Not saying everybody's experience is the same,
Of
but you know
course.
what I mean. So I think my goal is to ultimately, try to heal through the art, you know what I mean? Hopefully the art can help us heal, help us have empathy for one another, and then hopefully we can get closer to what a real one family looks like. And so yeah, I think that's really where I'm at with it is hopefully because I think sometimes people, get online or they type or they rant on social media, and I think people receive those things differently than if you are digesting it through art. I think art has a way to digest in people's hearts and minds and spirits because it's coming from a divine energy. You know what I mean? So I
Mhm.
think there's a difference when you're receiving information through art, as in if I just told you about police brutality or me and you just talking about it, right? I
Right.
think and I've noticed that through my experience. And so it's been, I've had some people come up to me who've just been like, I'm 70 years old and I never felt this way, or I never thought of that in that way just from watching an interpretive dance around it. So I can tell that the work is working, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So yeah,
Yeah.
that's my goal, is just to bring awareness and hopefully bring more empathy, for people of color, and then hopefully that'll lead to more people kind of being willing to understand each other a little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, the world right now is
Mhm.
a
It's a trip.
stressful place.
Yeah,
It's a trip.
it's a trip. It's a
And
trip.
there's so much divide, it feels like right now, right? And it's
Mhm.
like, I mean, what if you could, just sort of think about that for a minute. Like, what do you think we need to come together? Like, what is your feeling about it?
Ooh, I think we need more art.
More art.
I
Yeah.
think the reason why I say that is because when you think about art, art brings people together from all different walks of life.
Yeah.
When I go to concerts, you see just so many different people of different colors, shapes, sizes, backgrounds, because music is a universal language. Art
Mm,
is a universal language. Dance is a universal language. So I felt like if our if especially particularly in the United States, if we
mm,
appreciated art a little bit more and gave it a higher level of cultural currency, shall we say,
mm.
like I think the world would be forced to empathize more because it's more based around art, and art doesn't have a color or a gender or you know what I mean, or a
Yeah,
race.
yeah.
It's just expression. That's what art is, you know what I mean? And I think
Right,
in our world it's very capitalistic and business and money, and you know what I mean, and art it's a part of that, but even then, like, I still think it's secondary personally to the capitalism side of things in my mind. So I felt like if art
right.
was a little bit elevated more in our world, in our culture in general, I think maybe that would help a little bit, when it comes to the healing. Like you think about, I'll use him as an example. I mean, when you thought about when Michael Jackson or Prince or someone had a concert, how many just different types of people would be up in there, you know what I mean? And just
Yeah.
And even I've seen that with my own experience, you know, just going to different countries, going to Asia, going to Europe, and not being able to communicate with anybody verbally, but we can get in a cipher and through music have a completely deep conversation. You know what I mean? And I realized like, oh, dang, if we had more of this, you know,
Yeah.
maybe there would be some quicker shifts, you know what I mean? But I think the arts programs are always the first programs to go, right? When it comes to
Yeah.
school stuff and budgeting. And so I feel like there's a weird, you know, weird thing against art in the States because I feel like people know it brings people together, and I think it should be elevated more. And I don't know why it isn't, but hopefully that'll
Yeah.
shift. Hopefully that'll shift because I think it'll shift the consciousness. If we push the art up, I think the consciousness of people will shift because art really has no has no
Has no
boundaries.
boundaries.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, definitely. And for people listening who don't know what a cipher is, what is a cipher?
A cipher is when a group of rappers, dancers, you know, they kind of form this circle, and it's everyone kind of sharing that energy. You know what I mean? Some people go two at a time, some people go one at a time, but it's all about all the energy is focused to that one unity circle, and we're all sharing the energy of the music or the rhythm. And that's kind of where you tap in. We call it tapping in. You know, it's like tapping into a higher frequency, you know what I mean? And that's why my favorite place to dance over the camera, over the stage is the cipher, because that's the purest it'll ever get, in
Mm.
my opinion, you know, because the energy is supposed to be raw, uncut, unfiltered. No cameras are here. Nobody cares. It's just you, this dark light, music, energy,
Mm.
vibrations. You know what I'm saying? Where
Yeah.
everything else is a little bit more grander, and you have to lock yourself into the thought process of, all right, I'm performing, this is my character, this is a thing where I can truly just dance about how I had a shitty day today, and that's okay. You know what I mean? You can
Yeah.
just be, you know what I mean? You don't have to perform per se.
Yeah.
You can
Well,
just be
it's very present. It's very
present.
in the
Yeah.
moment. It's like
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
happening right now, how I'm feeling right now, and
Exactly.
and like a collective energy is created also.
Exactly, and I've seen the most godly rounds in the ciphers when and it's funny how when everyone's energy is focused on the same thing, what
Mm.
incredible things can happen. And I've seen people do things that defy gravity, that defy the laws of physics, that things where you're like, I don't think he or she will ever remember what she did in that moment, how she did it, because it was the energy that made them do it. You know what I mean? And so
Right.
I, I've really felt like I've seen spiritual energy in front of me several times, you know what I mean, in those spaces. So that's why they're my favorite spaces. Like people used to tease me all the time because we'd be ciphering at home. And sometimes I'm so into it. Like if you move me, I'll be crying and stuff. You know, that's just how I am. Like I get so moved by it because if I can really feel what you're saying and it's coming from a real place, it's hard not to feel that. If not, I don't know, it's just hard not to feel that emotion. So I love that space, and
Mm.
I thrive
Mm.
in it.
Mm. Have you seen the collective energy shift in that space? Like maybe when it started out, everybody was kind of in one place
Oh, yeah,
vibrationally, and then by the end, just like,
yeah. I mean, it's everyone's still living in their own thought bubble. So I've been in some ciphers where you can feel positive energy. You can feel the energy over there where this guy really ain't digging what you're doing. You can feel this. And so it's still navigating what your father's saying, is trying to express yourself honestly in the moment. Now, I think it's easier when people are pushing love because love makes you feel free and love makes you feel like vulnerable enough to be yourself and know that everyone's going to appreciate you for that. But then sometimes because, you know, it's hard, man. Artist life is hard. And sometimes being a successful artist, you don't always receive love from your fellow artists because sometimes they want to be in the position you're in. And so sometimes it's hard for them to congratulate you or show you that kind of love or energy because you're in a position that they may envy to be in. And so I've been in situations where you think you'd get a lot of love, but the energy is opposite. But I also enjoy that as well because I'm saying, well, I should still be able to tap into who I am and still, and it's navigating that energy is like it. Not everybody's gonna dig what you're doing. Not everybody was a fan of your father. You know what I mean? Like not everybody's gonna dig it, and that's okay. And that's okay, and being okay with that and learning how to not let that navigate how you express. You know what I mean? So it's a challenge all the time because the ego is in all of us and it's hard, it's hard to keep that balance, and
It sure
yeah,
is.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
definitely have situations where I'm like, man, I let my ego get the best of me in that one, or why am I letting this one person who's not everyone else is giving me love, this person staring at me like I'm crazy. Why am I letting that one energy navigate everything, And so
Yep.
the Cypher teaches you a lot about yourself. It
Mm,
definitely does,
yeah, yeah. Well, and as my father said, all knowledge is ultimately self-knowledge,
Self-knowledge. Yeah.
especially if you have the awareness to look at it that way, which
Fact.
you most certainly do. And
Yeah.
and and it's like every experience, even experiences that aren't great, are there's so much usefulness to them
Mhm.
because it helps you to know yourself better. I'm exactly like you, I'm going through my day. I try to be as peaceful and loving as I can be all the time, but there are certain situations, certain projects, certain whatever where I'm just like, "Ugh," and at
Yeah.
some time you have to like stop and go, okay, this is not the person that I want to be, and it's also not the person that I am at my core. What is it in me that I
Mhm.
need that I need to shift? Not what needs to change on the outside, like,
Yeah.
which is where everybody else puts their focus, right? Like, well, if
Yeah.
this person didn't do that or if this wasn't that way, it's like, no,
Mhm.
how can I approach this differently?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
That's 100% facts.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, as I said, the theme is family.
And yeah, yeah.
So, that word can have such a broad meaning for so many people. It can have really positive meanings. It could have really
Mhm.
triggering meanings also.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
don't need to get into all of that, but I'm curious, like, in its best vibration, what is the feeling for you of the word family?
Two words come to mind when I hear that, when I hear family. I think of love and I think of support.
Mm,
And those are the two things that come to mind because when I think of family, I think of people who support me in the highs, in the lows. Like, I mean, you knew me when I was living with four people in a one-bedroom apartment. You know what I'm saying? Now I own two homes out in Vegas, right? Like, but you were supporting me in a time period where I wasn't doing anything or doing all that stuff. And to me, that's what makes family, is like they're there for you in your best of times and your worst of times, and they're there to uplift you and support you, because we all go through ups and downs in life. And I think true real family, there's been a lot of people who were around in certain moments and then other moments they're not, and people, sometimes people have seasons in your life, but I think family is is pretty permanent to me sometimes, you know what I mean? So I feel like family, I think of just my support system. I think about the people who have just really uplifted me to be the person I am today and supported me even when my ideas were novice and I didn't know really what I was doing. Like when I first met you, I didn't know how to, I just had these grand ideas, but I didn't have the experience or the understanding of the technicalities of it. But I knew I had some things I really wanted to do, and you never frowned upon it. You supported it. You uplifted
mm,
it. You know what I mean?
mm,
And I think that's what family does. And so I just think of love and support when I think of family. And I'm blessed to actually have real family and extended family who do that for me, because some people don't get that love and support from their actual real family, but they can get it from other places. So family is not always who you're blood related to. You know what I mean? I think family is the people who love, support you, uplift you, and are there for you in your lowest of lows, and are going to be there in the highest of highs. So that's what I think of initially, if I'm being organic with it, when I think of family.
Yeah, 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 that's beautiful. I love that. Like I wanna really explore with everyone, like what is the feeling of family? Because when I hear my father's quote, under the sky and the heavens, we're all one family. Well, what is the energetic vibration of one family if we are really one family? And I love that. Love and support, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, lifting each other up. That's really
Yeah,
beautiful.
100%.
Yeah.
It's that's the hardest thing to do. And even then, like, that's getting back to the thing we were talking about before. Like, how do I handle this situation better? And there's been times where, you know, it's hard for you to uplift other people because you're in your own ego and feelings and all those things. And it's hard for you to genuinely be happy for someone. And sometimes I feel like that's something I just want to practice. And that's the one family concept you're trying to practice, is even if I'm not that close with you and we don't collaborate or converse that much, I still want to see you shine and win, because under the heavens, we're all the same pretty much, right? And so you're probably going through some struggles and been through some things that got you to that point. So who am I to question your blessing and where you are? You know what I mean? I just need to focus on sending you as much love and energy, because I believe that comes back around my way. That's kind of universal law. So yeah, I definitely think family for me just feels like someone lifting you up. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like literally someone picking you up, or hugging you when you're having a really rough day. You know what I mean? And you just need that energy. And
yeah,
I was very lucky to have those people in my life, the very select few.
yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So tell us what you're doing right now. What are you excited about? What are you working on? What is motivating you right now?
What's motivating me is film and television. Those are the things that are motivating me. And what I mean is not just film and television, but I feel like just similar to your father, how he felt like martial arts in film had endless boundaries of where it could go. And he was just starting to scratch the surface on his storytelling, his ideas. I feel like I'm offended that there's not a dance movie at the Oscars every year. That bothers me, because I think the art form is so beautiful. There should always be a movie with dance pushing the narrative that is on that level of substance, to where it does get recognized in that way. And so I'm in the process of developing a film with A24. I'm in the process of developing a TV show with anonymous content. I have to thank you for that, because I showed you a couple of little things behind the scenes and you gave me some really great feedback that helped me get my pitch materials in the right place. I never got to thank you for that, but I thank you now, and you gave me some real honest, like, boom, boom, but either way, just the development with Anonymous. I'm developing another TV show with Hulu. So it's like Hulu, Anonymous, A24. And then I'm also developing a Broadway show with the Public Theater in New York. So there's just a lot going on and a lot to dive into creatively. But I'm excited because these are the things I worked hard for and manifested and really struggled to get to these spaces. And so now that I'm here, I want to make the best of it. And I want to hopefully, my mentor always tells me this, we talk about cultural currency. So now I'm just in the space of like anything I do, I want it to be legacy building, in a sense of like, I have to be passionate about it. I have to love it, because I ultimately want to leave something behind when my spirit leaves my physical, that the next generation can use and say, okay, it was rare for dance movies to even be Oscar nominated, but now 20 years from now, it's a normality. You know what I mean? And those are the things. Or, oh, they never had 10 street dance shows on or off Broadway. Now they do. You know what I mean? And I want to be a part of that support. You know what I mean? That
Yeah,
that 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 creates that currency for individuals I may never meet in my life, but they may benefit from the work that we're putting in and the steps that we're trying to take to elevate the craft as a whole. So my whole life is dedicated to elevating the craft of movement via film, in theater, you know, and that's what my life is dedicated to. And I'm obsessed with it sometimes to a fault, but you know, it's I just want to see it so bad. Like I can talk about it and get emotional about it just because I
Yeah,
love it that much. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
I know the possibilities are there, and I'm just happy now people in a little bit of higher positions are starting to understand where my thoughts have been for such a long time. And now hopefully it's going to open up some new possibilities that hopefully shift the paradigm when it comes to the art form, you know?
yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it makes me want to ask you this question just because you speak so eloquently, so passionately, so beautifully about it. What do you love about dance? Like, what if you love this art form, you love movement?
Yeah.
Maybe not so much why as like what comes through you or what does it evoke for you?
I feel like it's the closest I get to the real version of myself.
Mm,
You know what I mean? It feels like it's it's the closest I can get to the honest version of who I am
mhm,
outside of my face, my limbs, my body, this exterior, like where I'm living a spiritual experience through a physical being. You know what I mean? So when I'm dancing, I'm tapped into the inside.
yeah,
And that's an addictive feeling because it's nobody can tell you what to do, how to do it, when to do it. It's just you getting to be you. And in life, we don't get that. Sometimes people are telling you when to wake up and go to work and clock in and clock out. And I got to go pick up my kids from school and I got to do this and I got to do that. We just literally live our day sometimes on schedules and schedules that sometimes are not completely designed and made by us. So when you can have that moment to just tap into you for a minute and unapologetically be you for a minute to 2 minutes to an hour to however long you're in that space, it's addictive. And it's also my sports background of I love team. I love putting a bunch of creative individuals and going through the rough process it takes to make something, and then the end product is all this blood, sweat, and tears you guys put into this one thing, and that one time you get to perform it, all that work that went behind it is like this big release of so many layers of energy that the audience may not fully understand, but they feel it. You know what I mean?
mm,
And so
yeah,
it's to me, it's just tapping into your truest version of yourself, which I don't care what anybody says. That is the most difficult thing to do,
yeah,
period, in life. And I think that's why I'm so addicted to it, is it's a spiritual experience for me. You know what I mean? It's a very like hence why I can cry on a dime when I'm watching it, because I can really I'm really trying to tap in to
yeah,
when I'm watching that person. I'm trying to like remove their physical and see their aura. Like what am I really seeing? What are you really saying? Oh, I can see, you know, and then I'm
yeah.
locked in. Now we can converse, you know.
Well, I think thank you for sharing that first of all, and I think this is very much in the realm of Bruce Lee also because, I think people really feel my father, like they feel this energetic experience
Mhm.
from him, and they don't even know why.
Mm-mm.
But it's exactly that. It's him like really just fully expressing his essence and like
Mhm.
just bringing it forward.
Mhm.
And that is such a visceral experience for those of us who bear witness to it.
Like even the noises your father would make, right? I use it as an example. If you listen to, I always go back to Michael, right? When you listen to Michael's music, some of his ad libs are so trippy. You know what I mean? Like there's times in Bad where it's like on the song Bad, he's just like breathing on the beat, like like you're just like, who
Mhm.
does that? You know what I'm saying? But like that's what he felt. and he made it a musical thing. And when your father would do something or throw a punch and he would make a noise, it was a part of that unapologetic rawness of what it is. You know what I mean? And we let that fly. Why? Because we feel that shit. You know what I mean? And that's what I mean. It's like you don't even understand fully the whole thing of why, but you can just feel it because it's honest. It's honest. You know what I mean? It's honest. Yeah. And when it's honest, it's kind of hard for you not to feel it. Like, so yeah, I think that's a big part of why your father is a legend, you know, because he was honest about his work and honestly serious about expressing himself through his work. And, you know, that's why people still speak his name. How many years later? You know what I mean?
Almost 50. Yeah. 48 years later. Yeah.
And not many people's names ring bells 50 years after their spirit leave their physical, unless you left something behind that supports, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what I'm aiming for. Some people don't. I'm 50-50. Some people don't, they just like to experience it, and they may not say, I want to be a legend. Some people don't want to admit that, right? Some people just be like, I just want to live my experience, and when I'm done, we can talk legacy later, right? You know what I mean? Some people are like that, where I'm like, I'm 50-50. I'm that, but I'm also like, but I want to be that too. You know what I mean? And I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't. Do you know what I mean? So it's okay that I say, yeah, I do want to be great, and I do want to be a legend, and I do want to be remembered, and I do want my work to stand the test of time. And that's a goal. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. That's not cocky or arrogant. That's a goal. You know what I mean? It's just a goal, you know?
Well,
So
as my father said, a goal gives you something to aim at.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah, which is what goals are great for. It's not to get fixated with the goal, but it's to just always be reaching for it.
Yeah, something to reach for, you know what I mean? And then I don't take it for granted. Like, we're talking about family and just like being even connected to you and your family and the greatness that your family has achieved, you know, that rubs off. You want to be great. It makes you want to be great. And then you say, well, why has the universe chosen me to meet Shannon? You know, why am I connected to their family? And you start asking yourself those questions. And maybe it's because I'm hopefully, and God willing, supposed to be aligned with greatness and whatever it is I'm supposed to be doing. And maybe that's why I'm meant to meet you, so I can learn how to be greater, a version of myself. Do you know what I'm saying?
I think you're doing a pretty good job all on your own.
I'm trying it, you know, but I don't take it lightly. I don't take it lightly, you know?
Yeah.
I always feel like, oh, I'm in this situation for a reason. What's the bigger reason, right? You know what I mean? Like, you know, even, I'm good now, but like 2 months ago, I had COVID, right? And, you know, COVID's a big thing, you know, it's been happening. I caught it. And I remember, I mean, just the anxiety of it, you know what I mean? And just like, oh my gosh, everyone's talking about it on the news. I thought I ducked it for 2 years and I finally got it, you know what I mean? And I was tripping out. And then I tried to think of what the bigger picture was. Like, okay, what am I supposed to learn from this experience? And it was just like gratitude, you know what I mean? It was like, you know, without health, you don't have anything. And I felt like there's a lot of blessings I've had. And sometimes when you're just in the flow of things, you're not really centered around the simple things that truly matter. And it humbled me down, you know, for a bit to say, okay, none of this matters without family. You know, I was talking to my mother every day. My father and I don't talk a lot. My father called me every single day. I had COVID until I got out of the quarantine process, because he knew my feelings and some of my anxieties I deal with when it comes to health, you know, and that's another conversation, but you know, it's cool. So he, you know, my family really supported me. My friends really supported me during that time period. And through all that love and stuff I was receiving, I was trying to find the bigger picture of why it was all happening. And it was ultimately like, there's a lot of blessings that are coming, but in order for you to be prepared for them, you have to also remember what really, really, really matters. And all that really matters is my family, my craft, the divine energy that I'm trying to surround myself in at all times. And those three things, and your health, and, you know, and so those things are what matter the most, and everything else really is icing on the cake, to be really honest. And that's hard to keep in mind when you're on the go, 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 go. Like life doesn't allow you to sit with those thoughts as much as you'd like to, because you're just moving and your mind can only process so much at a time, to say, oh, I'm only, but in all, today I'm on, I'm just grateful to be alive. And you should be, but sometimes you're like, shoot, I got 10 Zoom meetings and I'm busy and I haven't slept in 2 days. And, you're caught up in the workflow and the work mode and not really sitting back. So I think I just needed to get sat down for a little bit and, and just shift my focus back to family, support, love, health, those things.
Yeah. And the gratitude that you have for having those things. Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. So one question I like to ask everybody, it's usually toward the end here, the last question that I like to ask everybody on the podcast is, if you had one lesson or one piece of wisdom that has been really helpful for you in your life, that if you could just pass it on to somebody and they could really take hold of it, what is it that you would want someone to have or to know?
That's a hard one.
It doesn't have to be the like top one, but just one of any of the lessons or pieces of wisdom. Something that that you would want to give to somebody else. Okay.
Fill your bank with cultural currency. Fill your bank with cultural currency, because I feel like when you're in service of others, there's something so rewarding about that. There's something so full circle about that. There's something very family-like about that. So I think that, we get caught up in the success and what we think success is, but I've realized a lot of my monetary success has came from me wanting to help other people. And that's and like even my show, all the same dudes I street perform with and live with, they're in that show. Do you know what I mean? And some of them may or may not have had those opportunities to be in theater if I wasn't in the position I was in. But I truly am one of those people who get joy from helping people. Like I genuinely love to see people shine and win, because I ultimately understand that universal circle of like, even if you don't particularly return anything, it always comes back to you somehow, some way, shape, or form. So do something for the people, for the community, for your culture, for whoever. It's just being in service of others is, I honestly think, what the human experience is possibly about, and I think I'm learning that more and trying to operate from a space of everything I make is ultimately, even if it's like, oh, it's a film, but that film hopefully changes the culture of dance, which will then hopefully help thousands of other dancers that will come after me. So it's about filling my bank with cultural currency and not regular, dollars, if that makes sense.
No, that makes huge sense. And my father used to talk about that too. He used to talk about how, the real reward is from the process and from the journey. And that the financial reward comes as a consequence of that, but it's not about that, right?
It's not. And then you realize when you take the weight off it, and it's just my personal philosophy, I'm not even trying to sound privileged in any way, because I know what it's like to not have anything. But as I've gained more success, when I took the value off of the financial side of it so much, that financial thing started even happening a lot more and a lot easier, because my focus wasn't on what am I making? What's this? What's that? This is an awesome project. This is something I want to do. This supports my mission in life as an artist. Okay, let's do this. And then through that, Broadway, A20, all these things came, you know what I mean? And so I started to realize, like, just take the value off of the the money side of things and put the value in the cultural currency of what you're making. And then everything else will follow, I feel like, you know, because your father wasn't making movies because of the money. He was making movies because he loved that shit. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? And
totally.
he loved the craft so much that he had
Yeah,
movies that were successful, some that weren't as successful, but it didn't matter to him. He was following his purpose. And now, because of him, martial arts and film is forever changed because of him. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And so
yeah,
your family's bank is full of cultural currency. And that's why we're talking about him today. And I think that my life lesson I would give to anybody is whatever you do, do it in service of others, at least at the backbone of what it is you're doing. And I think you'll be surprised at what that can do for you.
yeah. Yeah, no, that's beautiful, and I think that's such a beautiful, wise, energetic,
Yeah.
exchange that I love, and it's also about, like, sharing yourself, sharing your soul,
Hmm.
like, in
Hmm.
some ways, like, just sharing your soul and your heart is an
Hmm.
act of service.
Facts, because you
Yeah,
teaching other people how to do it. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And so
yeah,
many people go their whole lives without honestly expressing themselves, and you never know what'll come out of that. You know, just you being you. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And I think that's why getting back on a weird full circle moment is like when you were saying, what does the world need? That's why I say art, because art is one of the spaces where people can honestly express themselves. And we need more of that in general in life. And I think that's important for just healing and just so many levels. It's just important on
yeah,
so many levels.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Oh, thank you so much. I have loved talking to you.
appreciate it.
And I have loved you being your friend
I love
for
you too very
all
much.
these years. Yeah, no, I'm really grateful for our connection
You too.
and and thank you for always showing up for me and being my friend. I appreciate
Always, always. That's what
it.
that's what family's about, right?
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
family's about.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.